By the end of today's episode, you'll know why it's so critical to submit your self-tape as fast as possible. Welcome to the Actor's Career Compass, where we help aspiring screen actors find high-quality auditions, sign with great agents, and book major roles in legit productions. I'm your host, Martin Benson, and today we're covering the importance of speed when it comes to getting your auditions done. You will be learning why it's so important to get your self-tape in significantly before the deadline if you want the highest shot of booking the role, how early submissions set the standard and make your tape more memorable, and a couple quick tips to get your tapes in sooner. But I will be diving much deeper on this in my next episode. So I'll give you a few tips now, and then the rest will be in the next episode coming out in a few days. Okay, so why is it so important to submit early? Well, because it gives you a strong competitive edge. As crazy as this sounds, casting directors sometimes finish the casting process before they even receive all of the submissions. In fact, this is more common than you might think. So at the beginning of a project, casting directors, just like anyone else, are really excited to watch the auditions as they come in. They're looking forward to seeing how the different actors interpret the role. But the problem is, after they review a few hundred, or especially a few thousand submissions, they start to feel fatigued. So watching the same audition over and over again, watching these same performances, the same lines, starts to become monotonous. And as a result, they are generally less likely to remember performances that come in later. Casting directors are also more likely to hold the remaining self-tapes that they watch to the standard and tone that are set by the first few that come in. There have been plenty of times where producers and casting directors have admitted that the actors that they chose were simply the first ones to submit a really strong performance. They just wanted to get the casting over as quickly as possible because they were on a tight timeline, and they're like, oh, this is good enough, let's go. So this is why I highly recommend that you submit your self-tape within about 24 to at most 48 hours of receiving the sides. Ideally, if you can, submit them just a few hours after getting the sides. Submitting early also signals to casting directors that you are professional, prepared, and responsible. These are obviously qualities that they're looking for when they're casting actors for serious TV shows and movies. So how do you submit a strong self-tape quickly? Well, again, in a few days, my episode will dive deep on this. But for the short of it, remember, submitting quickly doesn't mean that you want to sacrifice quality. First off, you should streamline your setup, meaning that your lighting, your camera, and your backdrop are always set up so that you can start recording right away. Second off, you want to block off time on your calendar as quickly as possible. So just block off the time slot in your calendar for the recording so that you don't let other responsibilities get in the way. Next, you want to have some readers ready, right? So keep a list of reliable readers that you know, and this way you can reach out to them as quickly as possible. And then finally, you want to learn how to analyze your own self-tapes, or in other words, learn how to sort of coach yourself. So if you know that it's strong enough to submit, then you won't need an acting coach every time, and you can get your submissions in way faster. Again, I'll be going over these things in much more depth and how to do all this in my next episode. Now remember, while submitting early is important, it's very important to also make sure that your self-tape is strong. Okay, so a poorly done self-tape is going to hurt you more than submitting a great tape later. So that's why in my next episode, I'm going to dive much deeper into this specific topic. For now, though, just remember, if you're going to be among the first to submit, make sure that your submission stands out for the right reasons. Well, thanks for listening. Now, if you want to dive even deeper on the casting process and how to book more auditions, I highly recommend checking out my podcast called The Secret Steps Casting Directors Take When Choosing Who to Invite to Auditions, What You Need to Know. And that is episode number 113. You're going to learn all about how to stand out amongst all the other actors who are submitting for roles. Again, that's episode number 113, The Secret Steps Casting Directors Take when choosing who to invite to acting auditions. Finally, if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, you can learn more about how that works on my website, martinbenson.com. You can sign up for the waitlist there, and you'll also get some of my top tips to book more acting work. Coaching spots usually open up every few months, and I'll keep you up to date on that. Thanks so much, and I'll see you soon.